Hey guys, Ashveil's beta just started and he is genuinely just broken. So I guess if you're planning to be an Ashveil main or wanting to play follow-up teams again, then you'll be eating good. This is probably the first units beta I've ever seen and thought they were genuinely just OP. Before this, early leaks were pointing to him as being a follow-up sub DPS, so there were a lot of people expecting another Moze to Feixiao type situation. But no. This guy is literally just Thanos. He's simply in his own tier. Now, today's video is going to be more of a rough overview rather than a deep dive, so it'll be a lot more brief than usual. By the way, throughout the video, keep in mind he's supposed to be a sub DPS. Now, starting with his talent, he starts with 3 charges, and anytime an ally attacks the marked target, Ashveil launches a follow-up attack. Now, this works like how Moze or Feixiao's follow-up attack works. But this follow-up attack has a 360% attack multiplier, and for reference, this is literally triple Feixiao's talent multiplier. Now, I know Feixiao isn't known for actual follow-up attack, rather her ult, but it's still double Topaz and Moze's. Now, at the same time, he is also making these gluttony stacks, which will be important later on. After that, we got his skill. Firstly, he marks an enemy with bait, so think like Moze. Here, he deals 300% attack and gains 1 more charge. However, if they're already marked, he gets 100% more motion value, so 400% attack to a single target. And for reference, Feixiao's at 200%, plus her follow-up attack. So not only does this deal more damage than Feixiao, so does his skill. Oh, and we're only halfway done with this. There's also this quality of life part, which is pretty nice, but the important thing is that he also provides 40% AoE defense shred. With this, Feixiao can finally reach high amounts of defense shred. At S1, Feixiao can actually reach 94% defense shred, which damage-wise, that's roughly a 40% damage increase for Feixiao alone. And this is great as for the longest time, follow-up didn't have any form of defense shred. Moving on, we now have Ashveil's ult. Just like before, he marks them as baits, but then he deals 500% attack to a single target, as well as launch an enhanced follow-up attack. Each follow-up does 600% attack, and for every 4 gluttony that he eats during the ult, another 600% attack hit. This is an OP attack. It's literally just Feixiao's ult but even more busted. And you can think about it like this. Every 6 hits, Feixiao gets a 700% attack nuke, so we can say 116% attack per action. For Ashveil, he gets 600% attack every 4 hits, which means it's even more efficient than Feixiao's. Not to mention the original 500% nuke. Now, this is a 160 cost ult, but it's honestly not too big of a deal as you're using the downtime to get more gluttony stacks. It's quite literally a perfect synergy. With all of his follow-up attacks, I'd say you can generally expect a 4-turn ult. Also, if you kill an enemy while ulting, it'll automatically redirect to a new one, so more quality of life stuff. Now, you would think that he's already OP enough, but no, he gets even better traces. Trace 1 gives Ashveil more access to gluttony, which in turn means he should generally be ulting every time with all 12 stacks. That means his ult should be hitting for a 2900% attack multiplier, being around double every other single nuke in the game, and it's legit not even close. The strongest attack percent scaling nuke I can think of is Herta's skill, and if there's 5 targets with somehow 42 interpretation on all of them, it's still only a 1758% multiplier. Another nuke is Castrus's, which can hit up to 1440%. So yes, this is a ridiculous number that he has fairly easy access to. After that, we have his Trace 2, which increases all follow-up damage by 80%, which his own will also generate 3 energy, alleviating his ult cost. And finally, Trace 3. All units get 40% crit damage, and follow-up attacks will get 80% more, so think of Robin but even better. Now, I'm not going to cover his Eidolons or Lycones in the video, as I'm just interested in his base kit. So with his base kit done, let's just quickly summarize his kit. He has insane attack percent scaling, but more importantly, he gives 40% defense shred, 120% follow-up crit damage, and lastly, 80% follow-up damage bonus. So with that, at first glance, the most obvious thing to say is that he replaces Feixiao. And yeah, you 100% could do that. With Feixiao, her unique gimmick was that she could potentially spam a lot of ults in a short amount of time, assuming you had follow-up units. But as we've all seen, the rate you get the ult is relatively slow for the damage that you can get out. Let's imagine you get one Feixiao ult every time she takes a turn, rotating through 4 units, so let's say 700% motion value per turn. Ashveil, I stated he can generally get a 4-turn ult, so with that 2900% multiplier, he's dealing 725% motion value per turn. So in that regard, he's the same as Feixiao. However, when you take account of the skill and follow-up multipliers and also total up the stat buffs, Ashveil has more total stats, which by the way I converted to crit damage to keep everything simple, and as well as that 40% defense shred. So yeah, from this he's stronger than Feixiao. But his kit is not locked behind follow-up attacks such as Feixiao. Her strength of utilizing ally follow-up attacks to get more charge also becomes her weakness, as she needs units who can hit fast. Ashveil? He has no such weakness. Why put him on a follow-up team as a sub DPS when you can just give him RMC, Robin, and Danong PT, and he'll just be one of the best hypercarries in the entire game with his ridiculous scaling? In this regard, he's exactly like Anaxa. He's supposed to be a sub DPS, but he'll just instead become a tier 0 carry. But as a sub DPS, he'll also be a tier 0 unit. To understand why, let's actually figure out what the hell went wrong with Feixiao. Feixiao was the meta DPS back when she released, but somehow fell off with Anaxa taking her spot. Now, was it her fault that she fell off? Well, comparing Anaxa to Feixiao, stat-wise, they're actually neck and neck, with Anaxa just having a bit more defense shred over Feixiao. As such, this doesn't really explain why Anaxa's tier 0 and Feixiao only tier 1. Well, that's because it's not really her fault, but rather the supports. Objectively, in 4.x terms, Topaz and Moze are just weak. Looking at my chart, we can see that they roughly have 150% attack follow-up attacks, and buff-wise, Moze gives 40 crit damage and 25% vulnerability, while Topaz on the other hand gives 50% vulnerability. In other words, too low attack scaling to be good sub DPSs, and too weak amp to be a good support. Now, let's compare them to the best sub DPS in the game right now, Evernight, who's also OP. Now, it's not really fair comparing them, but we need a reference point. Here, she gives her team 100% team crit damage and 30% vulnerability, which is quite a bit more than the hunt units. However, what separates them is the fact that Evernight gives herself 268 crit damage worth of stats, not to mention how her scaling is also significantly higher. And that's where Ashveil comes in. He's pretty much the Evernight to hunt or follow-up DPSs. Here, unlike Evernight, he gives 253% crit worth of stats to his team, plus 40% defense shred. Compared to Robin, who gives 50 damage percent, 120% attack, and 45 crit damage, that totals up to 308 crit worth of stats. Adding the defense shred, I'm pretty sure Ashveil buffs more than Robin. Why is Ashveil, a sub DPS, dealing more damage than main DPSs and also buffing more than dedicated supports? And that, I have no clue. With this in mind, I believe Feixiao, with the help of Ashveil, will be a tier 0 unit again. She finally has access to a good third slot, and she'll of course still use Robin. And it seems that Hoyo is fully aware of this fact with Ashveil giving no attack percent. However, this does bring up the question, does this warrant a nerf? Well, let's compare him to Evernight, who's currently in the live version of the game. He does give more stats to his team and the defense shred is a bit more valuable. However, with Evernight being able to use her own crit damage buff, like how Ashveil can use his own, I would have to put him on a similar level. Multiplier wise, I believe assuming both have a 4-turn ult rotation, Ashveil should outdamage and outamp an Evernight, which is pretty crazy. As such, it has me saying that he's even stronger than Evernight, who's already one of the strongest units in the game. With this in mind, I do think Hoyo's gonna nerf him. He's simply the strongest unit that's ever been released by quite a bit as far as I can tell. Now, I don't think they'll nerf him by too much, but I would assume they'll nerf his enhanced follow-up attack and some of his amp to put him at Evernight tier. Currently, he's just Thanos, stupid strong without any flaws. As for Feixiao, I 100% seen her being at the top of the meta again, but like top. As mentioned prior, Anaxa has similar scaling. The only thing that was holding Feixiao back was that third slot, which Ashveil just fixed right up. And again, not only does he outdamage DPSs, he also outamps supports. That said, I really hope he stays strong throughout the beta because he does look really cool. I'm glad follow-up's issue is finally being addressed, but it's a bit of a feels bad for Topaz and Cypher, who are kinda out of a job. Power creep got pretty crazy in 3.x, so any old archetypes need that Dahlia or Evernight type of support to keep them competitive. I hope Hoyo keeps the game's power level near its current point and not making this the new baseline, because I think that'll just kill the game. And yeah, that's the video. I hope you learned something new or better understand Ashveil's kit. Now, personally, I do believe he's a bit overtuned right now, which may lead to further power creep. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Now, a like or subscribing would really go a long way, but with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and peace.